So with the footy season upon us and autumn's here and everyone's thinking about football of various codes, I wanted to kind of explore three things that you might not know about sport. So the first thing I want to focus on is live sport, and it turns out that live sport is maybe a bit less lively than you might think. What I mean by that is in the last month, according to Emma data, only 1 in 9 men has been to a live sports event, which is maybe surprisingly low. And that does vary massively by state. So in Victoria, it's up at 17%. We all know how much they love their footy. In Queensland, it's down at 6%. And New South Wales sits around the middle, about 10%. But overall, only 1 in 9 men go into live sports events. And in fact, men are far more likely in a given month to play board games or card games or do some gardening. So live sport is a bit less lively than you might think. And there's an opportunity in that for marketers to encourage men to get out there. They enjoy it when they go. It's just almost a bit too easy for them to sit at home these days. So I think marketers could tap into that opportunity and help men with promotions or discounts to get along to sporting events. The second thing I want to talk about is what happens when men have kids. Now you would think that kids would take up a lot of time and your sports diet, if you like, would restrict and you'd be left at just going along to Saturday afternoons to ferry your kids around. And in fact the opposite happens, that men who have kids actually play and watch more sport. So for example, those with kids play more team and individual sport, 28% versus 22% if you don't have kids. They also attend pro sport more often, so 61% of them attend in any given 3-month period versus 55% for those without kids. And even they do more exercise, so 71% do some exercise versus 69% for those without kids. So on those three angles, men with kids are actually playing more sport. And I think one thing that comes out of that is that not only the big ticket items like state of origin, but also the grassroots and community sport is an interesting place to connect with men. And that means an interesting role for community newspapers, which men do look at to keep in touch with their local sports team as well as their kids' sport and things like that. So community papers, interesting angle for men and sport. So the last thing that I wanted to focus on is around the sports sections of newspapers and their websites. Now, Emma data for the first time allows us to look at these sections within the newspapers as well as online. And what comes out of that is some very high numbers. So it turns out that 49% of men read the sports section of their favourite newspaper in a given month. So it's really high numbers. And then when you think about the sports section in the newspaper website, we're seeing that men that go to live sport and like live sport are indexing around 131 on visiting those sports sections of the websites, and they're indexing even higher, around 143 for looking at newspaper mobile sites and mobile content. So across those different platforms, Emma has given us new data. Emma looks at 57 different newspaper sports sections and the equivalent in the online sections as well, to show us the opportunity that is there to connect with men in these very relevant, clean, fantastic environments to talk to men about issues that are relevant to them in that sports content. So it's a huge opportunity, I think, for marketers to get into that.